Okay, so we're live streaming. Anyway, um, that was for you, Mel. That was a private introduction for Mel, who's hanging out here on the Zoom side of our live stream event on YouTube, and eventually, in about 2 weeks, we will be back out live on Roku, Amazon Fire, Android TV, Google TV, Apple TV, all Samsung TVs, all LG TVs. And as of this morning, I just met the CEO of Vizio, another 80 million TVs. So we're just that we get the data and the information out, which is largely what this Q&A is designed for. We've answered 1,800 questions. Hundreds of them are posted on our YouTube account. Hundreds of them are posted on HISadvocates.tv. It's an app on your phone. You can download HISadvocates.tv. Hundreds of them are actually, all of them are posted on HISadvocates.org. So you are able to go into and get the questions answered. Well, what about my employment? What do I tell them? How do I tell them to stop taking taxes out? And that's one of the things I just want to start with tonight, because it's one of the big questions that people ask, and I answer it all the time. And it's almost one of those things where when they get the answer, they're like, shut up, it can't be that easy. And the answer is yes, it can be. So we've always heard that the IRS has, never been we're already doing that. We've always heard that the IRS has never been allowed or lawfully allowed to do what they do, and they're not. There's no law that supports them. Title 26 is not what people think it is, and what they do is contract with people, and the people fail to meet the guidelines of the agreements. And in doing so, you can receive a charge instrument, because that's what you volunteered yourself to be. You've signed a W-4, you've signed an I-9, you've signed a W-9, whatever it is. And you volunteered yourself into this system. As a matter of fact, the Congress of the United States has already said the IRS is a voluntary system. And people don't think that because the black suits show up or whoever, and they take your stuff, and they take your bank accounts, your cars, your homes, and all that stuff. And in our ministry, we believe in wholeheartedly that the federal government is absolutely out of control. When your borders are open and people can come across at a fighting age and declare war like they are across the world, it's kind of scary that we're supporting them. It's scary that we're supporting all of the missing trillions. I think it's 38 trillion now with the Pentagon. And so my personal position is I do not support things that I don't believe in. And just because somebody thinks that I am a United States citizen, which I am not, I'm a citizen of the United States of America, and that's rightly defined in law. And a citizen of the United States of America is not the same as the citizen of the United States. And that's a big pill for people to swallow. I've got like 100 plus Supreme Court rulings. And in the next few weeks, I'm going to be releasing on a video for people to take a look at, gander at, get a feel for, and go, holy cow, they're going to be shepherdized, which means still active law today. Still active law today. That a United States citizen is not the same as a state citizen. That a state citizen cannot be a taxpayer. Things like that. Supreme Court rulings. So two things. Guess what? You don't need to be a state citizen to stop paying taxes. Now, is that nice, Kelby, or what? Is that truthful, Kelby, or what? Yeah, it is. And then I'm just saying, because there is an action within the IRS code, and it's called revocation of election. And people do not know about this because they're not going to advertise this. But what this allows for you to is revoke your election to pay taxes. So there's a few tricks that they play. Number one, they still have you as under their jurisdiction because you've signed on to being a U.S. citizen, and you're not necessarily under the jurisdiction of an American. And so, or which is a state citizen. And so you obviously you want to put on layers of Kevlar on your vests and keep putting on more layers of Kevlar and keep building your protection. So you want to be a state citizen. You want to be outside of the jurisdiction of the United States corporation. You don't want to comply with any of the rules under the IRS code. You just want to be released of that because you want to cancel your contract. These are all corporations, guys. And you can cancel an agreement at any time you want. And this is just something that people are like, what? How? What about your obligation to pay taxes, Kelby? I actually have a higher obligation to God. Number one. Number two, they're not being forthcoming on the taxes. Number three, all of them are ripping off the nation like you wouldn't believe and lining up their own pockets like you wouldn't believe. And there's no accountability. There's $2 trillion annualized that goes into black ops accounts. So as a fiduciary and responsible party and one of God's witnesses, one of God's sons, I am not going to be a party to putting capital into a structural system that is evil at its core. Not everybody in the United States is evil. Don't pull that one. But the large portion of the people running the show just seem to be a little weird and not doing things in accordance to the law or to the rules. By the way, the Russian ambassador at the United Nations last week said, we all know that Donald Trump is the lawfully elected. We know, we saw the votes, meaning our goulash, KGB knows what really happened. And that's very telling, isn't it? So who cares? I'm not one of those guys that say Donald Trump was lawfully elected. I'm not one of those January 6ers, but I'm just a guy that speaks the truth as much as possible. And if I don't absolutely know, and if I haven't been able to validate and verify, and I can't validate and verify 250 million or whatever votes, but I can say there's a lot of odd things going on there, and I just don't want to be a party to it. So we do a few extra things within the living and the private that are required so that the IRS can't sign your name for you. Because you don't understand you gave that right up. So they will file returns for you. They will still do things to set off more debt, pull money off your treasury bond account and get paid, which is really what it, and that's not a misnomer. That's not a lie or a conspiracy. That's a fact. And there is actually a treasury direct account. There's many people that are trying to go and get access to those funds. I don't play that game personally. I'm called to come out of her, my people, in Revelations 18:4. A lot of that is blood money. It wasn't earned on me. It was earned on my birth certificate. And that birth certificate belongs to them. And people don't understand what they've done and how they failed. And if you're going to do anything like that, you need to quiet the title on the BC, become the primary holder of the BC as a beneficial interest. Then you can go set up your TD account. And so, but the bottom line is, I still don't want to do any of that. I still want to be completely out. I want to honor my father, meaning God. And I don't want to pledge anything to those things. So you got to do a revocation of election. You got to revoke your signatures that you've ever done with the IRS. And then you got to do a notice of status. And so there's a total of 9 letters that we do with the IRS, just them alone, for people that are coming through the living in the private program. So I want you to take that into consideration. We have a few questions that I'm going to start with tonight. And that as an opener, you're going to hear me start and stop the recording because we're breaking things up. This will be a solid all the way through recording, obviously on YouTube. By the way, every other Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific, we go live on YouTube, soon to be live on YouTube, Amazon Fire, Android TV, Apple TV, Google TV, your phones, both Apple and Google, Samsung, LG, and hopefully Vizio. Anyway. So we've been working hard to go around the world with our own network channel platform that we can say what we want and not get the platform. Now I'm still worried about it. I'm surprised I got approved at Apple. I'm super surprised, but hey, I'll take it. So the first question, and this is one of those fear-based questions, and we get this a lot. Hold on, here we go. Start the recording. If we are LPP State of the Union citizens. What signages, notices can we put out notifying authorities that approach our front doors? It's actually a good question. It's a little fear-based. That kind of stuff really doesn't happen. And let me start with, we don't have members that have issues. So hisadvocates.org, hisadvocates.tv has been doing this. This is our 12th year and going on our 13th year. And we don't have any complaints. And we are not getting people in trouble. And we are showing people how to be above reproach. And this is how I'm going to answer you. So the reality is, jurisdiction lies more than just you and your own status. Your status is super important, don't get me wrong. But jurisdiction is also who owns that home. And I know that you, as a person who are worried about jurisdiction over your home or yourself primarily, you're wondering, what notices can I do? What can I do to protect myself? And that's a righteous question. It really is. It's a scared question because we don't have members that have those issues. They don't get door knocks. Okay. We're just left alone. And if you understand what we do with the active state, and you understand how we do the notices with our fee schedules, and wait, just you wait. On the next few weeks, we are lining up a launch on November 15th, I think it is. It's a Wednesday, I'm hoping. To which you are going to meet people I've known for about 10 years, and I've done other seminars and stuff, but I'm going to be introducing a couple guys, one of which is LAPD whistleblower. He's active duty. They're trying to fire him again for not wearing a mask, not getting vaccinated, and he passed with flying colors, his physicals, this, that, and the other, but he's got him boxed in because he knows to. He knows how. See, these guys are using the most powerful private side administrative process, and guess where? I honestly, when you come from, I'm a licensed real estate broker. When you come from watching foreclosures on the private side, what do I mean by that? Non-judicial foreclosures. They don't need to go to a judge to steal your house here in California and many other states. And I'm thinking to myself, how do they do that? There's federal rules, there's procedures. You have to exhaust, it's called exhausting an administrative process, so that you can be privately defaulted, not on the public side, on the private side, where you're actually sending a notice of non-response with an opportunity to cure, and a notice of default. That is a private side summary judgment in a public side court. Meaning you can take that into a public court and make the argument for a summary judgment right there. And so these guys who are experts at getting the law enforcement divisions of Southern California to realize they're committing multiple felonies, to move and to shake and to and I'm gonna save it because I want you to know just how powerful they are. But it's our administrative process that they are going to talk about. So when you're going through our administrative process on the living in the private, you're going to realize just how powerful a private side administrative process is. So we're going to show in his advocates, because we've perfected coming out. It's just one part of it. It's just, we got to perfect your mind. We got to change your mind. We got to help you to understand the power that you have. We also got to perfect enforcement in the event of that door knock, in the event of those things that we really aren't getting right now. Not to say that we're never going to get them, but right now we're not getting them. And so it's important to really start realizing, if it were me, and going back to your question, if it were me, I would remove the property from the county recorder, take the property out of their jurisdiction. Now, as a licensed real estate broker in the state of California, I'm not speaking with that license, but I'm speaking with that experience. I've done thousands of loan transactions as a corporation, hundreds and hundreds personally. I know title and real estate and recordation deeds as good or better than anybody. You can go and watch my advanced chain of title training video I did 7 or 8 years ago. It's 9 hours. But if you need foreclosure defense, that is your go-to video. But the bottom line is, when I'm talking jurisdiction, you're saying if we become state citizens, it's a little more. Like in our living in the private, we show you to stop receiving personal mail at your house. Why? Because that mailbox is granting jurisdiction over the land. We actually, through the living in a private program, can show you how to properly record a real deed, not one that's a legal description in your all caps name. They own that. They own the legal description, which is above land. It's not land. Where you are a joint tenant or tenant in common, where you are, you know what I'm saying? This is the trick. Remind me, Kristen, to talk about the recorder versus the register. But the trick is, they're holding two operations right there in the recorder's office and the register's office. And I'm going to explain that on my next question right now, because that's super, super important. So we show you how to do a proper deed and remove that mailbox. And then even after you put the deed into the foundation name, and your fee simple, there are elements of what you can do to put it into a non-taxable event and completely pull it out of the county recorder, removing the deposit of that land from the county. And so, and I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm not going to say, I'm going to walk in the office, hand them a document and give me my receipt, and I'm going to go home and never get a tax bill. Wouldn't that be great? They don't want to, they're not training law enforcement that they're state citizens on the street. They just harass and deal with, court and getting their heads banged in later and getting sued and all those things. They don't realize what's going on. They don't want people to know. They're not even training law enforcement on state citizenship. They're training them on sovereign citizenship, which doesn't even exist or have a place in law. And so we have to just live above reproach, and we deal with things in a different form and fashion. So going back to your house, how did they get jurisdiction over the house? How did they get a warrant? How did they get an indictment? So here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. Go read a few of your friends or family, or go to the court record, review a warrant. Review a federal warrant, state warrant, review an indictment. What you're going to see is they have to outline how the United States or the state has jurisdiction over you. Now, I want to stop right there. Why is it that a government with omnipotent authority over you, absolute, no questions asked? Remember, they're training law enforcement. There's these people called sovereign citizens that they don't believe in federal rule or federal authority or state authority. Why is it that if it's just blanketed, it's absolute, do they need to prove subject, meaning me, matter, jurisdiction? That they have jurisdiction over me. Why? Because it's not just a blanket for everybody. Because there are people on this land that are outside of the United States. Do you know where the United States is? The District of Columbia, 9 UCC 307H. Where's the United States of America? Coast to coast. Are they the same? No. We're going to show you rulings in the next couple of weeks, Supreme Court rulings that are going to outline that for you. So when you ask that question about the house or about you as a state citizen, that's one level of Kevlar. Okay. It's actually a very strong, big, fat level of Kevlar. But the next level of Kevlar you're going to want to do, and this is why I said go read warrants and indictments. And then after you're done reading a warrant, you're going to see that it says the elements of how they gain jurisdiction. I saw such and such person at such and such property address checking their personal mail. I went down to the United States Postmaster. Such and such person receives personal mail at such and such address. I went down to the DMV. The DMV has such and such person with 2 motor vehicles registered at such and such address. What did they just do? 3 contract rule. You are contracted to the corporation 3 different ways using what's known as an office of the person, that birth certificate, UCC 9, registered organization, corporation, United States citizen, is the birth certificate. But you're holding that employment position. You got an employment ID number. You got all kinds of contracts that are tying you to it. You're receiving mail showing you're holding that office, literally. So I went, are you kidding me? That's what they're basing jurisdiction over men and women on across this nation, is the zip code and contract law, adhesion contract law. Yeah, it's exactly what they're doing. So we reverse engineered all that, and we structured up one program that's more than just granting jurisdiction. And me, with my experience, praise God, that I have experience in understanding titles and chain of custody and how to properly do title and how God makes introductions, and that blows my mind. But me, with that experience, I know how to properly effect a recording and at the local county recorder's office, and not register a property. What did I just say? And not register a property, give it to them, because that's where we're failing for a lack of knowledge. So when it comes to removing jurisdiction over them, over you, you want to take it off the plate for your cars, your homes. You want to give that all to God. I'm going to show you how we do it. And once you give it all to God, you create new contracts through your foundation that we create for you, for your licenses, how you get paid, all the way down. And you now become a free man or woman without contract to the federal or state corporations, with full unalienable rights directly under God. And now the Constitution, it actually applies to you. You don't have constitutional rights. You have God-given unalienable rights. The Constitution is to restrain the federal and state governments. It's not for you. And that's why people argue and make argument for constitutional rights, and there are none. You just got to show where they're violating it. But you also got to show you're not a party to being a U.S. citizen, because I can, and I've proven this on house.gov, how they bracketed the amendments on, or the articles on the, the amendments on the Bill of Rights from the 11th on. And right there posting it, they're showing everybody live what actually exists and actually doesn't exist for the corporation. That's why people think there's two constitutions, and there technically is, but all they did was take over as the corporation and do a new one, bracketed the first 10, and then everything else and on is unbracketed right there on house.gov. My point is, after reverse engineering, like they did with the UFOs or whatever, an indictment, a warrant, we've created an entire system to keep somebody free, being able to operate in the public, because private and public can mesh every single day. And in doing so, they now are free, without contract, without restraint, and not having to pay a single dime into the whore again. God bless that operation and his advocates, because it's going to go big in the next 2 to 3 years. We all know it, between all the oppression, all the stuff going on, all the forced whatever, that's going to stop. So let me go on to address the next element of what is a recordation versus a registration. Remember something, and don't laugh at this. This is a fact. And for all you attorneys that want to look this stuff up later, you're going to go, oh, sure, until you actually dig in, and you're going to go, oh, crap. So there are hundreds of Supreme Court rulings talking about state citizenship, both at the state level, federal level. And when you take a look at the dual offices in each department or branch, there is an office position to uphold, support, and protect and defend the Constitution. That's your oath of office, but that only applies to state citizens. I can show you a Supreme Court ruling right now where a United States citizen does not have access to the Bill of Rights. Okay, that's already done. Did they tell you that? No. They didn't want to play all these acts in the public, like you still are powerful and this and that, and that actually applies to you. No, it doesn't. Why? Because you have an employment ship with the United States located in the District of Columbia, and there's policies that are enforced by policy enforcement officers known as policy, and those policy enforcement officers are going to make sure you're abiding to the manual, the code, the statutes of their organizations and their subchapters of their United States corporation. Meaning the state of California, all caps, is a community of persons, community of birth certificates. Go look up the word state in Black's Law. The all caps is a community of persons bound within limits of federal territory. What does that mean? What is federal territory? The opportunity only to contract, or what the people of each state have given up to the feds and lawfully conveyed, because there are unlawful conveyances. And so when you take a look at a law like Texas, I've looked at all their lawfully conveyed land over to the feds, and guess what? They all have the gold fringe flag on it. That's a corporate United States flag. So I'm being very detailed on this right now to get you to understand the office position and the oath of every office position, because there's an oath to uphold the corporation. And then at the same time, there is an oath to uphold the people's God-given unalienable rights. So instead of just the recorder's office maintaining and still being the recorder, they made the lawfully elected recorder a registrar, a banker. Sneaky. I get it. So that registrar can take your deposit, thank you, and now you pay for the rest of your life for police service, fire service, and that's it. And trash in some areas. So here's where we fail for lack of knowledge. Here's the story. When you look at a grant deed, and I talked about it a little bit on the last question, I'm going to be very detailed on this one. You can record today using metes and bounds, putting it in the name of a private foundation, using lawful gold by hand, meaning transferring by hand for valuable consideration of an undisclosed amount of lawful gold by hand, using the name of a foundation, and using fee simple, absolute, and that's it, meets and bounds. So there's 5 elements. Currently, you're using a name that belongs to them, or a corporation name that belongs to them. You don't own corporations. I don't care if you hold stock. You don't own corporations. It's a certificate. You need to understand what a certificate is of stock and what a certificate is of title. You don't own it. The state does. Okay. It's a copy of the true title. The true title for any car is called a manufacturer's statement of origin. True title for a grant deed is a grant deed that has been accepted. This is where people are failing. They're assigning, but not accepting. And I will get into it later. We charge for an old thing that we do. I was charging $1, but it's become a pain. So I charge $29.95. Where you can buy a deed acceptance understanding of the lawful memorandum points and authorities of what a deed acceptance is, and some examples, and using different state laws and stuff. So you can go to store.hisadvocates.org, go to the real estate section, check it out. Super important. We failed. They didn't want to. Why? Because title was in control. They didn't want you to accept the grant deed. What would accepting the grant deed do? Solidify you as the owner, kind of quasi. And so if you're going to a recorder / register office with your deed, whether you're the title, the escrow, yourself, and you're making a presentment to them, please record this. And it has joint tenant in a name, birth certificate name, using Federal Reserve notes, with the dollar sign, using a legal description, which is above ground. It's not even land. And the vesting is joint tenant. The vesting alone tells you. But this is why we fail for lack of knowledge. That entire deed belongs to them. They own the name, they own the money, they own the legal description, and you're saying you're a tenant, and you're saying, please record this. I'm giving the money away to that guy, and I want to start paying you taxes. Literally. That's not a recordation. That is actually a thank you very much registration. Congratulations. We're gonna put it on this side of the books because we can, you know. So I have lunch with the LA County recorder, not the elected one, the guy that manages the basement. And I was in the basement with everything from 1967 and before. And I absolutely was in love for an hour and a half, 2 hours, checking out different grant deeds, patents, patent books, looking at real signatures of real old presidents. It was cool. I took a bunch of pictures, and I realized, okay, these deeds are different. And I knew about meets and bounds, and I knew about fee simple because I'd been in the real estate business for a long time. But then I asked the question, can I record a deed like this in the 1850s today? And he said, all day long. And I went, mother effer. I was pissed. Excuse the language. I didn't cuss. Said that to myself. I was pissed. Why? Because I'm a professional, quasi, in my opinion. You know, I'm an expert, in my opinion, about real estate, about transactions. Talk about getting the wool pulled over your eyes. You know what I'm saying? Talk about deceit. Just the fact that it's a legal description and not land, it's above the land. It's not land. It's not meets and bounds describing the territory or the land, not territory. Legal description is describing territory, federal territory. It's theirs. Then you're saying joint tenant. Are you kidding me? Are we not thinking this kind of stuff through? Tenant? You mean I just paid 400 grand down on $1 million house and I'm a tenant? No, we fail for lack of knowledge. Right there in front of us, using Federal Reserve notes, a debt instrument, where a Supreme Court has already ruled that any Federal Reserve note is a party to all contracts if that is used. And in the United States can enter into that agreement at any time. Using a name of which they own the rights to. So therefore, you're walking in and you're holding what you think of as ownership in a grant deed, and you're giving it to them to register. And they're going to say, hey, it's $1,000 a month to stay there. On $1 million property in California, $1,000 a month. That's what property taxes are. Congratulations, sucker. So when I got those answers, we started creating some deeds for people. And we did all kinds of different ways to do it. This goes right back to your first question. You got to bulletproof. You got to put Kevlar on everything you have. Your home is super, super important. And you can do this without owning 100% of your home. Meaning if you still have a lender on it, you still can do this. Now, I do want to warn you. There is an active in the deed of trust. There is in most deeds of trust, there's a thing called an acceleration clause. And the acceleration clause can happen if you change the vesting of title. Now, I'm going to say this. I've done this thousands of times. I have never seen, when I say I've done this thousands of times, meaning I've seen so many people out there take their home in their name and record it in a private trust. recorded in a LLC, recorded, it doesn't matter. You're still breaching the deed of trust. I have never once seen a lender, not once, do or invoke the acceleration clause. But I'm going to warn you about it. So when you go in with a properly effected deed in the name of a private church, foundation, humanitarian effort, now you have an opportunity to notice the county that it is owned by a church and that you are the fiduciary and that you want to be pulled off the tax rolls. And that's where the fight happens, because they will do that for a 501c3. Why won't they do that under the same classification of a 508c1a? Don't know, don't care. Big fight. But many people have been able to get pulled out of the county recorder's office. And on another note, many people have been able to stay in the county recorder's office and be able to remove the element of taxation because they're owned, the property is owned by a foundation. Now, does this make the county happy? Don't care. That's not what this is about. They have lied. They have done deceit. It is a corporation masquerading as a nation. It's a corporation masquerading as a state. It's a corporation masquerading as a city. It's a corporation masquerading as a township. And then they deceitfully changed the way of recording in the 50s and 60s. Why? For the reasons I've just stated. So if you want enforcement, build up your walls. That's where Trump said it right. We need to enforce the walls. Why? Because look what happens. So build up the walls. The more that you have done personally to affect a defense where they don't have jurisdiction over the property, where they don't know who owns the property, or where there's no mailbox, where there's gates, where there's no trespassing signs, where there's a sign that says State of the Union property, where you've noticed the sheriff, they don't have jurisdiction over the land, those kinds of things. I don't want you to sound too crazy, because then in their mind, you might get to that sovereign citizen crap mentality. But to answer that, when you're serving local police and local law enforcement with the final package of your living in the private, I suggest doing it with a handshake in person. Let them know you're not crazy, and let them know your heart and what you're trying to get accomplished, and just that you'll be there to support them and help them against the tyranny that's about to hit this year, because it's an election year. 2 cents. And next question. Has a document through his advocates been completed helping LPP members to achieve full asset protection regarding their properties via counter deeds, notification letters? Full. I think I kind of just answered all that. Yeah. And I also understand, like, I hear people out there talk about asset protection. Do you ever hear me talk about it? Really? No, not really. But our asset protection is like up here compared to them. All those guys, they're still pumping LLCs. They're still pumping all these crazy things. They don't even know how to record a deed. They don't even know how to do a bank account in the private. They don't even know how to get out of a tax roll with the they're all thinking they're sneaky through all these things. And I'm not putting down that, but I'm just saying, I don't advertise asset protection, but this is asset protection on steroids. And yes, we provide documents. If you want us to do them, there's a fee. But if you're part of the LPP, we'll give you a template to do, and you can do it on your own. What is the official? Here's the trap. The official answer concerning continuing to pay property taxes after having completed the LPP, and whether it will pull you back into the corporate jurisdiction. It won't pull you back into jurisdiction, because the house will be named in the foundation, and you still have a fiduciary obligation to pay taxes on it. You did not break that contract. LPP has nothing to do with your house unless you've done the things in which we've talked about in the previous 2 answered questions pertaining to your house. And so, great question. But the reality is, that's a common misnomer about, oh, just because I'm free, then everything around me is free. No, you got a bunch of contracts that you've done. Even your guns, they are all owned by the Department of Justice. Go read your firearms applications. So there's things that you can do on the guns and gun trusts and different things and bringing those things private and revoking those authorizations and all that stuff. But I got to say this, I really want you to consider that as a sovereign citizen mentality. Not that it's not a smart question, because it is, but it's a sovereign citizen mentality because you got to think it all the way through. That house is not you. That house has its own agreements, meaning with the county. That house belongs to the county in their mind. You understand what I'm saying? So just because you get free doesn't mean that, or your cars or your bank accounts are all handled. It all has to be adjusted. So great question. I really want to help people differentiate that there's the full living in the private program and a full conceptual way to think about redoing all those adhesion trusts. They're really adhesion trusts, not contracts. Awesome. Thank you, Nadine, for those great questions. Q&A. Do we have any questions? I'm going to go to the YouTube side of questions second, so just give me a second. How do I properly go about informing the school system and their web of minions that I am homeschooling my son and I do not have to answer to them? He is currently of school age. Mel, I don't have any problems. My kids were all homeschooled, and we didn't notice anybody. We just did it. And towards high school, they went into charter school programs. There was shop requirement letters. There was different things. I handled those. But when your kids are homeschooled, and if you've gone through the living in the private program, you're putting out there on your children's behalf and on your own property list, your children, you've claimed them back on a private side, and you're putting it into the public that there's this fee schedule and it's attached, and anybody steps on my rights, this is what's going to happen. And this is what the enforcement training is going to be for. Now, I don't even care about that. Do you know why? Because it doesn't happen. I've never seen that happen where, maybe in Europe, or where they'll have an issue with your kids, not like in Germany. Holy crap. In Germany, if they see your kid at home in the middle of the day, you got 10 people and neighbors calling because they're all programmed. But the bottom line is your kid has to become your kid. I know physically he's your child. I know the bloodline is there. I get it. But they're hard pressed trying to take our kids from us. And we know this. They're trying to make them community property. We know this. But in homeschooling, don't sweat that. Just do it. And if there happens to be a letter that you get, hit us up about it, and we'll assist you with that letter. Got it. Okay. I'm going to answer a question in the. What's up, Rick? It's a little cheaper to do it this way, huh, Rick? Love you, buddy. We have our vehicles in the name of the foundation with no standard plate. We were stopped, given a ticket for no registration, and we removed the vehicle. We moved the vehicle. They were going to tow it. We had to tow it home. We were just not far enough along. We ended up registering all vehicles in the foundation name. Did we make a mistake? Yes. We don't ever say to remove the license plates or stop paying on the registration because of that right there. Unless you're going to go get the MSO on all vehicles and do a notice to the state and with a fee schedule on your property, and truly have gone through and finished your DMV, removed yourself from the driver's license completely, not where you have a license, still, even though you're removing the element of the agreement with our forms. I operate, there might come a time, Rick, where we have to do this, but I operate in a fashion that removes the element of the agreement for the living man or woman and keeps the agreement quasi in place for the registered organization. I know a lot of people are like, what does that mean? You got to understand contract law, trust law, and understand that all of these original applications for the DMV, for the registration for your vehicle, all of these are single-sided trust agreements. And so for you, I would just leave plates on the car. Why play the game? The foundation already owns the car. You haven't removed the property from the county recorder or from their ownership, meaning you don't have a MSO. You haven't done the extra steps to do that. But with your kids or your wife, why do all that right now? We're not in an oppressed society yet. And so there might come a time where you would have to get the MSO on that. There might come a time where you need to take some extra steps. But the reality is, put the plates back on the car, get the registration in your hand, get it paid for and current, and don't play the sovereign citizen games, because that is a contracted vehicle to the state of which they have full control and authority over. That's why we don't play those games. But the MSO, which is direct from the manufacturer, is title. Then they can't touch that. And if you're unlicensed, there's all kinds of Title 18 that you can freely travel in a vehicle, or vehicle's a registered motor vehicle. You can freely travel in a car or conveyance, or call it whatever you want, without a license. Do I want to take that risk? I do on my motorcycle all the time, but I ride it once every 3 months. Do I want to do it on my day-to-day vehicles? Probably not. But if they tell me I need to do something where I have to take something before I get my registration updated, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to get the MSO, I do the registration, and move on. So who knows where we'll be in 4 or 5 years? Who knows if I'm going to need to go to another state and get, and I can help you with this if you need, if you want to remove the jurisdiction over the vehicle from your state. We do recommend going to our guy over in South Dakota. Use our name, you get a discount, and you're able to transfer all your titles to another state and have South Dakota plates on your state's vehicles, and there ain't nothing they can do about it. And when or if a cop ever pulls you over, you do have an address in South Dakota, and they start asking questions, and we don't answer questions respectfully. Can I just give a ticket, move on? Thank you, officer. Appreciate your time. I got to get my wife. I got to get my kids going. I got to do this. Got to do that. Just be respectful. Get the ticket and go call 1-800-tickets after it's over and get it done. We don't fight the guys that are being trained to be thugs and dirty to people that are believing they are free and maybe sometimes have it wrong. And not saying you had it wrong, but if there's no MSO in your hand and you haven't removed the property, meaning the vehicle, from the state, then they own that vehicle, and there's guidelines that if you want to rent their vehicle on a day pass, that you got to keep a license and keep it registered. And that's where the statute and code comes in, and that's where we fail for a lack of knowledge. Hope that helps, Rick. Okay, I'm looking for more questions. Thank you, Kristen. All right, got a good turnout. 448. Any other questions? What do y'all want to hear about? What do you want me to talk about? Oh, guess what? Retired Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force. We're going to be doing an interview. Yeah, MCO is the same as an MSO. It's different titles, different states, different whatever. An MSO is sometimes smaller, but they look the same. They look like a title, but as you see, it says American Honda. It doesn't say state of California. This is a MC of O, manufacturer certificate of origin, manufacturer statement of origin, same thing. And this is from Honda. This is a duplicate, which means it's an exact certified original copy. It's an original, not a copy of an original, meaning. And it describes the vehicle, and it shows on the back that I am the owner and not the state, because I hold the title, not the state. Therefore, they don't have any interest in it. They have no lawful right to take the property and tow it. And if they do, it's going to be a very expensive fee and fine for them. And they will lose ultimately in court, not maybe in the lower court, but in the higher courts. They do lose every time. And this is where the enforcement stuff comes in. But we never look, we don't play these games until they start forcing us to do things we don't want to do. We're not going to play the game of sovereign citizen mentality and all that stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, there is a thing called state citizenship. It's very real. We're not trying to come out of a structure that is godly and holy. We're trying to come out of a structure that's evil at its core, that is faking everybody in every way out at every level and stealing everything from everybody in the world. I am not going to give a dime to that whore or to that mafia boss. I'm not. That is immoral. It is wrong that you participate in those things to which are promoting evil. And for the record, read Revelations 18:4 to see what happens to you if you don't, because you're partaking in the plagues. Anyway, recently somebody told me about a friend of theirs was stopped by police and claimed they were sovereign and they got shot on the spot by police. I doubt that. I doubt that. Show me the article. I want to see that. Look, law enforcement makes mistakes all the time. There's 1,100 plus deaths to which 600 don't have any weapon. I get it. But you're not going to say, hey, I'm sovereign, and a cop pull back, draw his gun and shoot. That just does not happen. Something happened that scared that cop, that caused something, if it did happen. But on the flip side, why do they make those people trying to be free that are doing it wrong largely? Why do they make those people criminals just for expressing their freedom? They fail for a lack of knowledge. They don't understand the Supreme Court. They don't understand who we truly are as the people. They're being trained to be thugs, period. Sorry, law enforcement. Love you guys. Few of you guys are my friends. We'll hug it out. Y'all are being trained to be thugs, policy enforcement, not law enforcement, policy enforcement officer, to which you don't even know 99.9% of the law. 90% of the time you're making arrests for false arrests. What's my favorite false arrest? You're being arrested for resisting arrest. That's my favorite. You're being arrested for resisting arrest. What was the original arrest for? Because the law says that you can resist arrest up into the point where you can actually take the law enforcement's life if he is making an illegal arrest. That is the law. That's not Kelby. I do not condone that at all. And I love life, and I love the life of police, but that's the law. That's not a theory. That's not my conjecture. If a law enforcement officer puts hands on you and it's an illegal action, you need to know who you are, and you need to not pull away. You need to not take inappropriate steps. You need to not go for their gun. And law enforcement does dirty things too, like they did to that guy up in Oregon, where he gets out of his truck and walks away from the law enforcement officers. He turns, they shoot him in the pocket right here. So he would go like this, and they could say he was reaching for something in his pocket. Then they lit him up. That was their plan the whole time. Law enforcement, FBI, yes, you guys can be dirty. Yeah, it's not all of you, but you're trained to do these things, and you're above the law in so many different things. And it's unfortunate, because we, the people, truly are the ones with the power, and you were supposed to be there just to serve us. And can you imagine if you actually operated within your oath, how you would feel on a day-to-day basis being one of the people as well, instead of enforcing things for thugs and for the committee of 300 and for those 8,000 guys that work for the committee of 300? Yes, this isn't conspiracy BS. This is what's going on in the world and why there's a world takeover and why they're trying to hostilely take everything in our nation and why they've allowed 5 to 6 million people of war age to come over our borders and get ready for the most intense fight this next year on our soil. We have much bigger things to worry about, guys, than a cop approaching your house. Okay. I'm just saying, much bigger things to worry about. What's up with that? YouTube. Okay, here we go. Already have a passport as a national, and my passport card works while traveling. They won't write tickets or cancel. State of the Union citizen ? It's like, as long as you're not a US citizen, it works ? So, there are people that get where they travel with a passport ID card, and I've seen many people get pulled over, and like, I can't say what you've written on your documents. I don't know how you approached it. I've done a video on the national. I'll call you Thack. I don't know what to call you. I did a video on what a national is under 8 USC 1101 A21 and 22. It's national and national of the United States. If you take a look at that word national on any website, Cornell Law, go to Cornell Law, type 8 USC 1101 A21. It says a person that owes allegiance to a state. When you click on that word state, it brings up all federal territories. It's because it's a United States code. And they're trying to trick people into thinking that a national is the same as a state of the union citizen, and it's not. And that's why everybody that talks about becoming a national, they do all these affidavits of state national, affidavits of American national. The word at the end is the one that counts. American is could be just the word national is the one that counts. And the point I'm trying to make is, you're making allegiance to being a corporate US citizen, because that's what it is. And the only free people, Ben Franklin was not a national. And I know there's people out there and big names that talk about national, and it's never been anything that is on a national base. We've always been, and our sovereignty has always been the state, meaning estate. Look at the word state, lowercase. It's a body of people. It's a body of people. The sovereignty of the king passed to the body of people that say God is king on the Declaration of Independence. That's what a state citizen is. And so when you start to realize the law and the trickery within the law, I don't understand necessarily how you got around. And quite frankly, I don't understand how anybody is going to be driving around, traveling is easy. Anybody can travel with a passport or state passport or, passport ID card. But driving is a whole different thing. So I don't really necessarily understand how you were pulled over, led away. And frankly, anybody that's going through trying to be a quote unquote State of the Union citizen, I don't recommend at this time, unless, like I said, you are holding the MSO and you've come completely out where there are no federal contracts, no state contracts between you and them. Now you're driving around or traveling around in a vehicle or a car, conveyance, whatever you want to call it. The reason why I change it from vehicle is a registered motorized conveyance. That's what a vehicle is. And so when you talk about driving, you're saying you're a paid profession. And when you're a passenger, you're a paying customer, literally. And so this is why originally, when you were in the United States of America, a driver, the only people that were required to have a license were the professionals, meaning the taxi cab guy, the limo driver. It wasn't the people. The people can travel anywhere they wanted in their buggies, their cars, or their whatever. So things really started getting enforced in the 50s and 60s. Okay. So just understand that you don't want to be a national. And I'm proud of you for taking the steps to try to come out, and they allow for millions of views and millions of subscribers on YouTube to go to these other people that are touting American National. But it honestly, 100%, go look. I've done other videos, and you're going to see that it is absolutely a person that owes allegiance to a state, but that word state is a federal territory. There is not the 50 several states of the union on that description on like Cornell law. So yeah, I'll check it out. Thank you, Kristen. So it's super important for us to get our mind wrapped around those elements of where they're tricking us to, just like the registration versus recording. It's the same principle. Are you going to be cruising around in a car that you own and hold the MSO to, and with no license, and not just no license, where you've removed your signature and canceled the last one? Okay, not with an expired license, not with a canceled license, not with a license where you filled out their form to cancel it. You have to create your own contract, because their form, you're saying, I still will uphold all the DMV laws, but I just won't have a license in my law. That's basically what you're saying. Here's the tricks. That's the tricks they play right there. Here's another trick. You want to go get, there's a lot of people out there. There's big names, people out there that want to do something at the Secretary of State. I'm totally blanking on it right now, where you remove your status as a United States citizen. I'm blanking on the term. And where you revoke it, and the application is $6,000. Come to us. Number one. Number two, you're becoming stateless. You're removing yourself from the United States and the United States of America, becoming stateless without protection. And then you say on the oath, and I am promising to uphold all the laws of the United States. So you're making another agreement. So you're never, ever out. No, not non-citizen national. No, there's another one. God, what is that thing called when you go to the consul and pay the money and revoke your U.S. citizenship status? I forget the name. Anyway, it is renouncing. Affidavit of repudiation is one of them. Renounce. No, it's another thing. I'm blanking on the name. Either way, it doesn't matter. They trick you into coming back in, and that's the thing where we fail. You know what I mean? It's like, why are we not thinking these things through? Why are we not understanding our rights as people, as men and women? And so in this ministry, I want to keep people safe. So I can remove the element of subject matter jurisdiction. I can remove the element of jurisdiction and still have bank accounts. I can remove the element of jurisdiction and being able to travel or drive freely. I remove all of that, and I do it lawfully. And when you read our docs, you're going to go, oh, snap. And you look at the words in Black's Law, and it's like, oh, snap. Persona. These words, they mean stuff, and we fail for a lack of knowledge. And so I get it, man. I get it. This is one of those things where we're all learning. We all figure this is taking me since 2008. This is 15 years now. And I could have been doing mortgage loans at the best interest rates. Just, hey, no points, no fees. Just here, I'm going to send you some docs, sign it, and boom, boom, boom. And funding 50, 60 loans a month. I could have been in the money. But you know what? Loans were not real. And that became more moral for me to stay away from that. And unfortunately, was the end of my career in the loan business in 2008 when I discovered that. And I've never gone back. I've done private capital since then, but not traditional loans. And there's guys my friends that stayed 4 or 5 million a year, easy. So it's been kind of a kick in the nerdies. Anyway, no, I'll have to share a different definition, Cindy, for you. So listen, guys, I really appreciate your time. This is happening every other Monday at 4 p.m. We were going to do a VIP show tonight. I got too much going on. I'm trying to launch the His Advocates TV. If you're watching, go to your phone, download His Advocates TV, please. And that is connected to on your TVs at home: Roku, Amazon Fire, Android TV, Google TV, Samsung TV, every Samsung TV, every LG TV. We're working on Vizio, we're working on Sony, we're working on cable networks. But where you can watch me live when I go live, we're going to go live again in about 2 weeks. We haven't done this for 6-8 months because we kept getting down, kept having server issues. We finally got new sponsorship, new servers, much bigger company. And so we're working the kinks out. And when we go live, you'll be able to watch live on your phone, and then you'll be able to forward it. And you're going to really allow for us to have this message of freedom get out, because there's only one way, and that's just to cut the ties. So listen, God bless you guys. I appreciate you taking the time and listening, and we'll see you soon. Look, Sundays I do a prayer call. Normally on Tuesdays I do a HISadvocates.tv show. Haven't done it in about 8 months. I'm going to kick it back off hopefully in about a week. Tomorrow night I'm talking to, but I'm not going to publish it for a week, Lieutenant Colonel, and you're going to get some inside scoops, some serious intelligence information on both of our takes, more on her side of what's going on in the United States corporation. And we're going to talk a little bit about Republic, and we're also going to talk a little bit about living in the private, because yes, we do have federal agents, we do have police, retired, active, we do have Air Force, we do have military, we do have NFL football players, Hall of Famers, we have janitors, United States postal workers, we do have everybody. People want to be free, and you just have to address the trickery of the corporation in DC and quit the court. And that's a big thing that people don't realize. It's not all these affidavits, it's more of a quitting and making your statements and then putting that out in the public, and then serving the clowns with notice. I don't mean to call them clowns, but come on, it is what it is. So God bless you guys. Thank you for watching, and hope you have a great week. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.